The James Show Podcast.
I am your host, James Parker. Are we the only losers working today? We are. We're the losers, right? The cool people aren't working today. The people in charge. I know, me too. I'm including myself in this. I'm not insulting you. I'm just wallowing at the bottom of the hierarchy alongside you. Because I noticed, Casey had a fill-in today. Oh, Casey got someone to let him have Labor Day off. I noticed Vince did a rerun, so there's... what am I doing here? Garrett's not even here, or original Garrett. There's Garrett the board op, and then there's Garrett the backup board op, and then there's the Garrett the board op when I'm on remotes. And this isn't a Newhart takeoff. We really just have a bunch of Garretts around me. Even Garrett's off, or Garrett 1 is off. I'm trying to, my new AI, I'm working on an alternative, artificial intelligence producer to replace Garrett. I call it Good Garrett. And so I was kind of working on him over the weekend. So if Garrett's not going to show up, maybe I'll be at a place next Labor Day where Good Garrett can take over. If I can just master the macro so Good Garrett can run the board, because I already got him, he can already give me better feedback than real Garrett. And I've trained Good Garrett's voice to affect that of Jasmine Crockett. So that's extra fun. Sometimes you just... Anglo. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Good Garrett. But we'll work on that maybe next Labor Day. But you're at work too? I had the Labor Day discussion with my kids yesterday. We're in the car and they're in the back. They're like, hey, we don't have school tomorrow. Do you have work tomorrow, Dad? We can go do stuff. No, I have work. Well, I thought Labor Day was when you're not supposed to work. It's like, well, there's no such thing as a day that everyone has off. And they're like, why can't there be a day where everyone has off? I'm like, well, if you're dying in the hospital, your doctors can't all take off. All the nurses can't just leave the hospital and just let everyone die and, not empty your colostomy bags or give you your shots or go see what happens when that machine starts beeping next to your bed. We can't just have everyone off. So if your house catches fire, the firefighters won't show up till Tuesday to come put it out. If you get robbed, the cops still have to show up. If you have an emergency, there still has to be a doctor to work on you. And I guess if you turn on the radio, I'm the only sucker here that has to actually talk into a microphone. But no, there's no such thing as a day that everyone gets to be off. If you're a farmer, you have to feed your animals every day. It's not up for debate. So here we are, you and me, Labor Day. Welcome to the fun. We do actually have some news. And one of the news stories that we'll hit up this with my first guest in the next segment. There's been some huge attacks on both sides in the Russia-Ukraine war. And kind of, I scratch my head on why this doesn't make news, because I see so many people that have Ukrainian flags still in their bios. And just earlier this year, they were marching in the streets in major American cities, flying the Ukrainian flag, protesting Russia, calling for an end to the war and all this stuff. And now we have, the United States actively involved in a hot war with Russia. Now, we're not actually pulling the trigger, but Ukrainians are taking American weapons and using them in Russian territory. So these are all clear acts of war, just technically speaking. You may not feel like we're at war, but the idea that this doesn't make bigger news, the only explanation I have for this is, would it make sympathetic to Trump's position that we need to do whatever it takes to end this war? Yeah, I think so. And so now the selective reporting on the Russia-Ukraine war, where it was the most important thing that everyone had to change the flag in their bio and their profile pictures, the Ukrainian flag and all this goofy stuff. It's not more important than making Donald Trump look bad. Damn, you people are evil. You are so ate up with politics. No, we don't even want to end the war. As much pain and suffering as there is going on, we don't want it to end because that might make Donald Trump look good. They don't care how many thousands of Ukrainians and or Russians die. Their reporting is based not on the truth, not on what you need to know, not any journalistic standards or integrity, but whether or not it could possibly make Orange Man bad good. That makes sense? Well, I was trying. So, yeah, there's that going on. Also, there's another story in the news that actually isn't in the news that should be in the news. I mean, if you go dig and you can find it. But it's one of the things that's plastered with headlines that should be hitting you upside the face when you turn on the TV tonight and it's not going to. Did you know that there was another big crash? And this just happened on I-20 right outside of Lindale, which is adjacent to Bug Tussle. A multi-vehicle crash on Saturday. 17 injured people to the hospital. It shut down the only interstate we have out there for hours. But according to documentation, according to reports, I saw it first from my buddy Sarah Field over on X. The carrier is out of California. This is a state that's known for issuing non-domicile CDLs to non-citizen truck drivers. But we have 13 violations been found, including driving beyond the 8-hour limit. Documents also show a possibility of insurance hopping. And here we have, yet again, a misbehaving immigrant truck driver. Killing people, hurting people, causing chaos. Jamming up traffic is kind of the least of the worries, but that still counts. You're not going to get a whole lot of reporting on that either. Well, it's an ugly mainstream media we got out there, don't we? All right, coming up next on The James Show, we're going to talk to Dr. Jeffrey Broder. He's from Rigaku, and he knows all the stuff that's going on in the Ukraine-Russia war that the media, they know it's happening. They're just not rushing to put that at the top of their headlines. They're not running to go out and put this out above the fold on their news websites. But then after that, we have a couple other things that I want you to stick around for. And if you're in your car and you're about to get in, go to the store, you're running errands, when you get back in, make sure you put it back on the show, because there is a couple of congressmen, one a Democrat, one a Republican, that are going to have a press conference Wednesday with 10 of the Epstein victims. And so I don't know if they're going to go out there and start naming names. I doubt it, because there's all kinds of legal consequences. But I think they're going to tell their story in an attempt to shame Congress into voting to releasing the Epstein files. It's just a public pressure campaign. I know this is all PR, but this is the kind of stuff that works. This is the kind of stuff that moves politicians. My next guest is going to give you some info I bet you're not getting a whole lot of from the rest of the news outlets. Dr. Jeffrey Broder is back on from Rigaku, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear consultant at Rigaku Analytical Devices. And I was just trying to dig through before the show and noticed that there have been actually some big battles and attacks in the Ukraine-Russia war. Not seeing a whole lot of headlines, so I was like, well, let's get Broder back on. So what are we missing? What's the average person not know about the war right now?
Hey, sir, good to be back with you. No, actually, Russia, Ukraine is doing more of the same. They're trading punches. Russia, on the other hand, is extremely busy. I think Ukraine is sort of blind to the movements, and they're positioning themselves for a full-on offensive next spring. Here's what I mean by that. Russia is engaged in sort of three lines of effort. They're deterring the West, any support of Ukraine. And one of the ways that they've done that in the last 24 hours, the EU president von der Leyen's plane was due to land in a Bulgarian airport. And apparently Russia saturated the airwaves with GPS jammers. And I say GPS jammers, that's what it looks like to me, because none of the GPS systems or the transponder on the plane worked. Pilots had to use paper maps to navigate and land. Transponders at the airport were not emitting. And those maritime vessels and fishermen were all without GPS signals at all.
Dr. Broder, I remember a story about how and this was years ago, a professor at UT here in Texas said that he could take down any drone or unmanned aerial vehicle or something to that effect. And what he did is he sent the wrong coordinates and fed it. He didn't take control of it. He didn't hack it. He didn't get past the security system of the computer that was running it. He just told it was in the wrong spot. And so it would naturally make adjustments to go to the right spot. And is that what's happening here? They're just sending it like false info?
No, it's a different technique. In the technique you described, and it's been tried successfully before. All you've got to do is take a bubble gum wrapper, that aluminum foil, tape it to the bottom of your drone, and it deflects any waypoint signals that you could introduce to it. This is literally, so a GPS system relies on an antenna on my platform that's really passive. And what it does is it receives signals from satellites. More is better. To give me an accurate location, and it sort of triangulates where each one of the satellites intersect my position, and that's what gives me an exact position.
So the signals come from above, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They're all satellite born, and so the jammer saturates the GPS antenna so it does not receive any signals.
Gotcha. Okay, good stuff. So are the attacks, would you say they're getting bigger and bolder since we've had the peace summits?
They're kind of different. I mean, the only thing there are two significant things that kind of stand out to me. The first is Ukraine can no longer claim to be the good guy. Last month, they used drones to attack a nuclear power plant inside of Russia. That's a downwind hazard for a number of people, depending on which way the wind direction is. And Russians have begun a change in strategy in their equipment deployment. No longer are they deploying heavy armor vehicles and tanks, but more light mobile platforms like all-terrain vehicles, motorcycles, that sort of thing. That does a couple of things for Russia. Number one, I would not want to drive one during the winter, but it disperses your troops. So imagine a squad of 12 soldiers in the back of an armored vehicle. One drone with a bomb could disable, disarm, or destroy most of them. If you've got 12 soldiers on 12 motorcycles, you've dispersed them. It's a little bit more difficult for a drone to do that, to hit them. And then they're just much more mobile, and that gets to my point. The experts are not suggesting this, but they almost appear to have fielded their military the opportunity to encircle, in other words, come around the western side of Ukrainian forces in the east of the front. And once they do that, they can starve them out for the winter.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku. Also, if you're on 12 motorcycles, you can pop wheelies, and that's probably a big advantage in wartime. But we had a deadline after Trump met with Putin, and then he sat down and had a meeting with Zelensky and a bunch of other European folks. He's like, I want to see this resolved in a couple weeks. Do we have a firm deadline on that, or did it already pass, or is no one paying attention to it?
No, in fact, I think the latter is sort of the truth. Prime Minister of India, China, and I forget the third one, met a couple of days ago, sort of unifying their partnership. I think I know the secondary tariffs went in for India. It doesn't appear it's going to make much of a difference. Frankly, China, I think, has had enough of Trump, and they're no longer listening, to their detriment, I think. But no, I think this thing is going to end by Russia taking it. Well, all of Ukraine, and they're going to turn Ukraine into a buffer zone to protect themselves against the great NATO threat, if you will.
Didn't India get slapped with extra tariffs for buying Russian oil, and that what drew the ire there?
Yeah, they absolutely did. I think that went in a couple of days ago. But then, India went ahead and met with China and Russia. So maybe they were talking about their counter moves, but I haven't. And the counter tariff, the secondary tariff just went into effect. So I think it's premature to figure out if it's going to have make much of a difference. I hope so. We won't know for a couple weeks. I mean, when you move maritime vessels that have, metric tons of oil, it's kind of hard to measure quarts. So we're going to have to let this play itself out for the next couple of weeks. But it will, if it goes into effect and it is effective, I should say, then it should begin to have a significant effect on the Russian economy this winter. And I'm marking that with 1 November.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur, you work with Rigaku. You guys sell equipment that could be useful in some of these scenarios. How does this affect your company?
No, so our device actually helps protect the operator from the hazard. In fact, funny you should mention, a week ago, I was talking to a Ukrainian 2-star general just about this, and it has significant utility. If an operator can generate a report in less than 1 minute with greater than 90% confidence that a solid liquid or a powder is what it is without opening the lid on the transparent or translucent container, it informs the operator at the point of need. And Rigaku just unveiled last month their fourth generation handheld Raman, the first in the industry that has standoff detection, which is a huge feat and revolutionary change in physics, if you will, up to 3 meters. We'll be able to interrogate a sample and give you 90% confidence that it is what it is. That is helpful if you're going to take our 3.7 pound device and mount it on a drone or a UAV.
Yeah, it sounds like the closest thing to the X-ray goggles I tried to buy out of Mad Magazine in the 80s, sir. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku, I appreciate your expertise on the Russia-Ukraine situation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you and good day.
And those glasses don't work, by the way. Don't fall for it. I know we're about 40 years late on that one. I just saw this morning. I was like, print this out. Can't wait to tell people on the show. So a Democrat representative, Ro Khanna from California. So it's not just a Democrat, it's a California Democrat. And then Republican Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky. So it's not just a Republican, it's a Kentucky Republican. And you know what they're like? Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, they're the super liberty guys, almost libertarian. They're going to have a joint press conference coming up on Wednesday, and we're told that 10 victims of Jeffrey Epstein are going to be a part of this news conference, and they're going to tell their stories and try and whip up a little bit of fervor, interest, and really shame. The whole point of this is to shame Congress into voting to release the Epstein files. So that is what this whole press conference is going to be about on Wednesday. Now, this press conference itself isn't going to do anything. This isn't going to accomplish anything concrete. This is total PR, and rightfully so. We're dealing with politics, and so you got to play politics if you want to win politics. You got to play the game. So I am mildly optimistic about this, because after hearing from the Epstein victims, are we going to hear the usual parade of shame that comes with this? Is the news media going to help us out with this, or are they going to let it slide? Because they've actually been pretty good about the whole Epstein files now that Biden's out of office, and calling for the files doesn't put any pressure and make anybody from Team Blue look bad. So will we get something on that? All right, let me play you a couple of sound bites here. Ro Khanna, Democrat from California. He wants this is all in a pressure to get the House of Representatives to pass a measure allowing the release of the Epstein files.
We've got 212 Democrats and 12 Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. Look, this is not about Donald Trump, and it's not partisan. This is about justice for the victims of rich and powerful men who abused underage girls. And 10 of these victims are speaking out for the first time at a press conference that Massie and I are organizing on the steps of the Capitol on September 3rd. In this country, people want transparency. They want accountability. I'm confident we're going to get the 218 votes for the discharge petition.
Now, I'm not sure if this counts as bipartisan. A lot of people will say this is bipartisan because there's a Republican and a Democrat involved. But when all the Democrats are voting one way and only 12 of the Republicans are voting in the same way, that doesn't really feel bipartisan. And that kind of bothers me. Republicans, and I know you're not a Republican congressman, but why aren't they in favor of this? Why would they stop this? What is their problem with this? And that's the ugly dance that you've noticed from politics before, is how many times when the party that's out of power runs their mouth, and then when they get in power, they turn into these little field mice like, oh, it's just little old me. Why, there's nothing I can do about that. I don't know how to balance a budget. Oh, my goodness. How could you expect me to do such things? Oh, little old me? Oh, you want me to release the Epstein files? Well, I'll see what I can do, and I'll ask some hard questions, and I'll go fight for you, but can't promise anything. Oh, little old me, you want school choice? Well, I'll go down there, and I'll see what I can do. Stop it. So, hey, maybe this will work. As much as I hate these emotional plays where they're intentionally just tugging at your heartstrings for political purposes, maybe it'll work. Here's Ro Khanna again, making a good point. How are you going to argue against this? Because once you hear the victims' voices, if you critique that, are you critiquing the victims?
I talk about that news conference because you're kind of touting it, that it's going to be, if not explosive, there's going to be some news made.
Well, these victims haven't spoken for decades. When Epstein got that lenient plea deal, no one talked to the victims or their lawyers. No one talked to the victims or their lawyers when Maxwell was sentenced. No one has ever heard, what do they want? And my belief is when the American people actually hear the victims for the first time, they are going to sympathize. Their hearts are going to be broken. And all the victims are saying is for closure, we need the Epstein files released. That there are a lot of other rich, powerful men, politicians, business leaders who have committed abuse and who have not been held accountable. That's what we're going to hear on September 3rd, and people are going to be outraged, and I don't see how after that the House can't vote for the release of these files.
Okay, I've been disappointed every time I've gotten my hopes up for when it comes to this Epstein list. But am I naive to get optimistic again about maybe finding out who's on the Epstein list or who some of the clients were? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Because coming up next, I'll give you the T-chart on reasons why I think we will get some sort of resolution when it comes to the Epstein clients and reasons why we won't. And I'm kind of leaning on, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of leaning on, I'm not so sure we will ever get the list. But right now I'm talking about my muted enthusiasm for a press conference that's slated to happen on Wednesday. It was announced by Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna and Republican Representative Thomas Massie. One's from California, one's from Kentucky. Every once in a while, Ebony and Ivory can get together and sing in beautiful harmony. Man, they should make a song out of that. And this is just going to be a push. This isn't going to release the files themselves, but this is meant to shame people into releasing the files. And I'm super interested in this because not only is this an interesting setup from the point of view of, wow, all the Democrats are for this. A few of the Republicans, more of the Liberty Caucus Republicans are behind this. So who's really just left against this? The old school legacy establishment Republicans, the neocons of the world, the Mitch McConnells of the world, the John Cornyn's of the world, not the cool kids, not the Rand Pauls and Thomas Massie of the world. So that's going to be an interesting divide. But then you take that out of D.C. and you apply it to the rest of the country and the colors flip. You're going to see what is the media going to say about this? Are they going to criticize this? Are they going to push for this? Because I don't know how this plays out. And does this make Donald Trump look bad or does this make Donald Trump look good? I don't think the media knows what to do with this story because I think they accidentally played into his hands over the whole D.C. situation. Now, stick with me on that. We'll get into something a little deeper than that. Oh, no, heck, I might squeeze it in this segment, too. I got a great soundbite that kind of spells out the trouble that the media is in and the Democrats are in because they're all on the record saying, man, Donald Trump shouldn't be going into D.C. This is wrong. The National Guard is just going to make things worse. Not even necessary. Won't even help. They can't even fight crime. They're just picking up trash in the park. This is such a waste. This is literally Hitler. And we turn out 2 weeks later, there hadn't been any murders, crimes down, fallen like a rock in the Marianas Trench. And we're having a bunch of people change their tunes. We're having the mayor of D.C. saying, yeah, it's been pretty good. Anything that keeps my people safe, I'm in favor of it. But look at how this is playing out in the rest of the country. How does the mayor of Chicago continue to make his case that the National Guard coming into his town wouldn't be good when we see what it did for D.C.? How can the media make the case against releasing the Epstein files? I guess they would probably be for it because right now Donald Trump's against it and they just do whatever the opposite he wants to do. But there was no great outrage from the media for 4 years over the Epstein files. There was no big push by Ro Khanna, or for that matter, Thomas Massie, to get the Justice Department to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. And I have seen it with my own eyes. I've been in newsrooms where I have watched the information come in, and I have seen journalists. The worst was in TV because we actually had to have editorial meetings. We don't have an editorial meeting where all the shows and all the producers get together and here's our top stories and here's the angles and here's how we're going to cover it and you're going to go there and you're going to get a soundbite from this guy and you're going to get some research on that topic and and it's all put together in like a big machine. Here, this is like different shows kind of do their own thing. And if we happen to overlap, that's pretty much a coincidence because we're all looking at the same headlines. But I have seen the sausage being made. And like just as an example, hey, one of the Dallas Cowboys was caught on a hidden video using the N-word. It's exactly what you think. If you are in an editorial meeting, the first question that comes up isn't, oh my goodness, that's racist. How are we going to cover this? Or, oh my goodness, who cares? That's not important. It's, well, who said it? What is the color of the person that said it? And based then only on that information, do they know whether or not they're offended? It really is that bad. So the media, we talk about them as some monolith, and they're not. I mean, I'm part of the media. People in this building behave in a much different fashion than these people that I just generally blanket throw insults at from time to time. But you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who a month ago were telling you that we're going to be in a nuclear war with Iran imminently, and they're going to start drafting your kids. Remember that? There's someone, I don't want Trump to start an Iran war and draft my son. We've been in a ceasefire ever since. They told you the stock market was crashing, never to return in April. We're at record highs. They told you inflation was transitory. It's still been above 2% since they said that. Hell, they told you Biden was sharp as a tack up until about a year ago. They told you masks worked. They told you Jussie Smollett was attacked. They told you COVID didn't come from a lab. They said repealing net neutrality would ruin the internet. They don't know. They don't know. The headlines are not for telling you things that they know. The headlines are for them trying to affect public opinion in favor of their preferred political worldview. Now, Jeanine Pirro, who used to be on Fox News running a great little weekend show, is now the acting AG over D.C., and she was talking to the media about the crime stats and whether or not the D.C. intervention by the National Guard is working. And this sounds like an A+.
In the last year and 8 months, 45 black teenagers, minority teenagers, have been shot and killed with firearms. Do you know what the clearance rate is, Shannon? The clearance rate, meaning how many cases have been solved, is 29%. That means that 70% of the murderers of African-American teens, all of them killed with guns, are still out on the street with their guns, continuing to do what they do. And so for all those people who say, oh, crime is down, isn't this great? That's nonsense. What we need is to recognize that the first order of government is the protection of its people. And President Trump is willing to make sure that D.C. has the resources, that D.C. has the determination, and all of us, both in the United States Attorney's Office, are doing the best we can to put together the most solid cases. And so far, we've had 1,528 arrests, 156 guns taken off the street, which means they can't be used to shoot and kill other people. Last night alone, 76 arrests.
They're getting it done. Sorry you're not going to see it a whole lot being pushed over here. Look, on MSNBC right now, voters express outrage at town halls across the country. No, do D.C. Don't go find some, what is that? In Rhode Island? In Angie's? Oh, August 4th in Rhode Island? Oh, yeah. That's great news. Why don't you talk about all the black lives that have been saved in the D.C. National Guard intervention, and how maybe if we did in other cities, we could have a conversation about how many more could be saved. No, not interested. That would make the bad guy look good, and it's more important for your politics to let black people die in inner cities. Great worldview you've got there, guys. Real loving group of people. Very, very impressed. You should be so happy with yourself. Coming up next. So the redistricting battle in Texas is over. Sort of. Still got to go to the courts. But Brian Harrison went on CNN over the weekend and was challenged by Caitlin Collins. And you'll hear 3 clips of him slapping her down and crushing her like Dixie cups coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.